At the wedding banquet in St. Charles, just after the second round of toasts and before dessert, Bella grabbed the microphone. She wasn't drunk, not exactly, just loose enough to be brave. Or cruel. Or maybe both. She wore the kind of dress you only wear once, the kind that looks like debt and vanity stitched together. White, even though it wasn't her wedding. I paid for it anyway. She tapped the mic once, twice, and it let out a small shriek. People laughed. The lights dimmed just a little more, enough to blur the flaws on everyone's faces. That soft, amber glow weddings love, the kind that forgives everyone just enough to call it a celebration. And then she said it. Relax, he's just my mom's husband. No warmth, no smirk of affection, just those 7 words, dropped casually like a gum wrapper on the sidewalk. The room laughed, not all at once, but in ripples, like watching a disease spread under glass. Table by table, people chuckled, some louder than others. One of her bridesmaids actually clapped. I caught someone near the back mutter, "Ouch!" And then came the part one can't forget. Leslie, my wife, Bella's mother. She smiled, not in shock, not with discomfort, but like she had heard the line before, like it had been rehearsed, as if she knew the script and liked it. That was when something inside me stopped. I set my fork down. Halibut with lemon butter, a meal I'd chosen from a menu I'd paid extra to upgrade. I stood up. No big scene, no sharp inhale, just movement, the kind that doesn't ask permission. I left the banquet hall with a soft, deliberate stride, walking past linen-draped tables and battery-powered candles. Nobody followed. Nobody asked. Maybe they thought I was heading to the restroom. Maybe they thought I was being dramatic. But the door closed behind me with a soft click. And inside that hall, behind the laughter, the wine, and the music, someone, eventually, asked the question that hung like a hook in the air. So, who's confirming the payment now? That was the moment the party stopped pretending it was about love. I sat in my truck, in the back of the gravel parking lot. You could still hear the music if you cracked the window. A string quartet version of a Taylor Swift song. I didn't start the engine, didn't call anyone. I just pulled out my phone and stared at the soft blue light of the screen. Notifications piled up, photos from guests, tag posts, emails from the venue. I opened my inbox. There it all was. Payment confirmations, receipts, reservation codes, authorizations. My name beside every dollar spent. Not Leslie's, not Bella's, mine. The venue? I had wired the deposit 2 months ago. The photographer? I paid in full up front. The band? Booked under my account. The decorations? The makeup artist? The extra seating Bella insisted on for Dad's side, meaning her real father and the people who only acknowledged me as a bank account. I paid for it all. But I wasn't angry. Anger's hot. This was cold. This was clarity. This was the freeze you feel when your body finally understands what your mind's ignored for too long. For years, I had swallowed the little slights. Thanks, Mike. Instead of thank you, Dad. You're a good guy. Instead of you're my father. My real dad's taking me to brunch. My real dad's flying in for the ceremony. My real dad. Always just close enough to make sure I knew I wasn't him. But I stayed quiet. I let it happen. I told myself that sacrifice meant being invisible sometimes. That being a stepfather meant earning love the long way around. That blood didn't matter, presence did. That if I just kept showing up, kept paying, kept building, eventually they'd stop comparing me to a ghost who left years ago. But ghosts get honored. I got dismissed. And tonight, that line, just my mom's husband, was the final payment on a debt I didn't even owe. I'd signed for everything, but I owned nothing. I thought about going back inside, just for a second. I imagined walking through the double doors, grabbing the mic, and saying something that would set the record straight. Something that would make everyone pause and feel the weight I'd carried for them. But that would have made it about me. And it never was. They didn't invite me into the family, they just built the wedding on my credit card. So I stayed in the truck. The parking lot lights buzzed above. Moths battered themselves against the bulbs. In the side mirror, I could see the ballroom, the string lights, the laughter, the clinking glasses. A show I no longer had a part in. I opened the banking app. I scrolled through the transactions like a man reviewing a crime scene. $2,500, Bella's dress. $1,200, trial hair and makeup. $9,800, venue reservation and upgrade package. $3,400, custom floral arrangements. $650, monogrammed party favors. $5,600, photographer and videographer duo from Chicago. $600, pre-wedding brunch. $1,000, bachelorette weekend lodging. Yes, I paid for that too. Every cent mine. Every swipe, every transfer, every wire. Silent, invisible threads connecting my life to an event I'd been written out of with a laugh and a microphone. No one had asked me to speak. No one offered me a toast. I was there but not really, like set dressing, like an ATM built to resemble a man. That's when the idea came, not out of spite, not out of vengeance, just out of math. If I wasn't part of the family, then why was my wallet? If I wasn't a father in name, in gratitude, in memory, then why play one in the balance sheet? I sat there in the dark, the glow of the phone on my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just stared at the numbers, at the trail of proof I had left behind, a trail they would pretend never existed. Because that's the thing about silence. It lets them rewrite the story. And tonight, I decided I wouldn't stay quiet anymore. I didn't go back inside. I didn't storm the stage. Didn't demand the microphone. Didn't send a text that could be **T and shared for sympathy. I stayed exactly where I was. In the truck, engine off, windows cracked, the faint echo of music leaking out like something already dying. People think restraint means weakness. They're wrong. Restraint is control. And control is quiet. I scrolled once more through the confirmations, through the trail of proof that my role had never been emotional, only financial. Then I opened my contacts and found the number I'd used months ago when everything was still polite. The venue manager answered on the third ring. "This is Karen. How can I help you?" My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. "This is Michael Harris. I need to remove my card from the event currently in progress." There was a pause. Not confusion, calculation. "Sir," she said carefully, "are you requesting a cancellation or a transfer of responsibility?" I looked through the windshield at the ballroom windows, glowing gold, full of people laughing at a joke that reduced me to furniture. "Remove my card," I said. "All charges. Effective immediately." Another pause. Longer this time. "Is that everything?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "They've made it clear I'm nobody. Let someone else pay then." She didn't argue. Professionals rarely do when they hear certainty. She just said, "Understood. I'll note the account and proceed." The call ended. No drama. No fireworks. Just math correcting itself. I put the phone face down on the seat. For a full minute, nothing happened. No lightning bolt. No instant regret. Just the hum of the parking lot lights and the distant applause from inside. Then my phone lit up. Leslie. I didn't answer. Bella. Ignored. A number I didn't recognize, probably the wedding planner. Silenced. The voicemails started stacking up like overdue bills. "Where are you?" "Michael, call me right now." "What did you do?" The card was declined. Is this a joke? I didn't listen past the previews. I already knew the tone. Panic always sounds the same when it's not your money on the line. About 40 minutes later, right as the main course should have been served, the music stopped. I didn't need to be inside to know. The sudden quiet carried across the lot, heavy and wrong. Then a voice, the event coordinator, low, professional, careful. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pause the reception briefly while we clarify a billing matter. Thank you for your patience." A pause. Then murmurs. Chairs scraping. The illusion cracking. Through the glass, I saw Leslie standing perfectly still, eyes down, hands clenched in front of her. Not confused. Not shocked. Just exposed. Bella disappeared behind the curtain near the stage. The bride followed her. The groom stood there alone, smiling too hard, nodding at guests like this was all part of the plan. The wedding froze, not ruined, frozen, suspended in the exact moment where everyone realized love wasn't footing the bill. I started the truck and drove. Not far, just to a diner off the highway, vinyl booths, burnt coffee, fluorescent lights that tell the truth. I slid into a seat by the window and ordered black coffee. Nothing else. My phone kept vibrating on the table like something alive and angry. I didn't touch it. From where I sat, I could see the glow of the banquet hall in the distance. Lights dimming, music restarting and stopping again. Staff moving faster than before. The kind of motion that means someone's scrambling. For years, I'd been the man who scrambled, who fixed, who smoothed things over so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. Not tonight. I sipped the coffee. Bitter. Honest. At some point, the voicemail slowed, then stopped. Silence settled in, real silence. Not the kind I'd been forced into before. That's when I understood something I should have learned long ago. Silence is expensive, and I'd finally stopped paying for it. It was past midnight when Leslie showed up at my door. No makeup, hair still pinned, but wilted. She carried her shoes in one hand like she didn't remember taking them off. Her feet were dirty, her silence even more so. She didn't knock right away. Just stood there on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, eyes drifting between the doormat and the doorframe. A woman trying to decide whether she wanted a confrontation or a confession. When she finally knocked, it was soft. I opened the door but didn't step aside. We looked at each other. For the first time in a long time, there was no script between us. "You know she didn't mean it," Leslie said. I waited, because sometimes people just want to say things that are easy to swallow. "No," I finally replied. "She meant it," with a laugh. She was nervous, trying to be funny. It was a moment. "A moment," I echoed. "Like the 4 years before it?" She flinched, just slightly, then straightened. "You walked out," she said, voice tightening. "You embarrassed her. You embarrassed all of us." "I didn't say a word," I said. "I just left." "You left your family's wedding," she snapped. "You abandoned your responsibilities." That word, responsibilities, hit different when it came from her mouth. I stepped back, letting her in. She hesitated, then walked past me into the kitchen. She set her shoes down by the island like this was still her home. "You didn't just leave," she said again. "You pulled your card. Do you know what that did?" I sat down at the kitchen table. "Yes," I said. "It reminded everyone who's been paying this whole time." She leaned against the counter, hands gripping the edge. "You sabotaged your stepdaughter's wedding." I laughed once. Hollow. "Sabotage," I said. "You think pulling my money is sabotage? Then what was your silence for the last 6 years?" She opened her mouth, closed it. I stood. "Let me remind you," I said, walking past her. Opening the drawer where I kept a stack of invoices and confirmations, I dropped them on the counter one by one. Venue, photographer, florist, dress, catering, DJ, bar, hair and makeup, transportation, custom signs, tips, all in my name, all paid in advance. "She didn't ask me for a toast," I said. "She didn't introduce me to the in-laws. She didn't mention me in her speech. You stood beside her the whole time and never once corrected the story, that all of this was built by someone invisible." "She was nervous," Leslie repeated weakly. "No," I said. "She was honest. That's what happens when people are relaxed. They say what they really think. And what Bella thinks is that I'm just the man who married her mother." Leslie turned to the sink, hiding her face. I didn't press. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the facts sit in the air like cigarette smoke. The next day, the consequences started arriving like forgotten packages. The florist didn't return. The catering crew packed up early. The photographer, a friend of a friend, said she was holding the drive until payment cleared. The venue withheld the final set of photos and access to the event recordings. The band requested a call with whoever was now responsible for the outstanding hours. And Bella's honeymoon travel upgrades, all paid with points from my card, were suddenly downgraded. Leslie's phone lit up like a war room. Texts, missed calls, angry voicemails from people who, until last night, had smiled at me across the table like we were family. She stopped answering around noon. By 3 p.m., she turned her phone off entirely. When she finally looked up from her hands, she didn't see me like she used to. Not like a man who held the house together, who fixed the gutters and paid the bills and learned how to tolerate a teenager who only ever saw him as a placeholder. She looked at me like I was a threat, an inconvenience, an obstacle to her ability to pretend everything was still under control. That evening, Bella came to the house, still in makeup from the night before, dressed in some gauzy wrap like she was trying to cosplay sincerity. She didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was. She marched into the kitchen and slammed her hands down on the counter. "You humiliated me," she said. "I didn't look up from the bill I was reviewing." "No," I said. "I just stopped hiding the fact that I've been the only adult in this family for years." "You walked out on my wedding," she snapped. "Do you know how that looked? Like a man leaving a room where he wasn't welcome." Her mouth twisted. "You could have talked to me. You could have said something." I looked at her. "Bella," I said calmly, "I've been saying things for years, with actions, with support, with money. You just never listened." She scoffed. "So this was revenge?" "No," I said. "This was accounting, and the numbers didn't add up anymore." She laughed bitterly. "You're pathetic." I stood. "You're right," I said. "I was." I handed her a printed list of everything I'd paid for in the last year. It was 4 pages long, neatly itemized. She stared at it. Her face changed. Not shame, not regret, just confusion, like she was looking at a language she never bothered to learn. "I don't want this," she muttered, crumpling the pages. "You already took it," I said. "That's the problem." She left in a storm of perfume and outrage. Leslie didn't defend me this time. She didn't say much at all. Just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee maker, as if waiting for it to do something miraculous. That night, the silence returned. But it was heavier now. Not the kind you endure, the kind you choose. I lay in bed beside Leslie, and for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own house. Her breathing was shallow. She didn't reach for me. She didn't apologize, just stared at the ceiling. I did too. The ceiling fan spun, throwing shadows across the room. I counted them like years, like mistakes, and I knew what had to come next. 2 days later, I left. No shouting, no broken plates, no suitcases hurled into driveways. Just one bag, packed quietly in the early morning while the house still slept. The note I left on the kitchen table was short. No dramatics, no desperate final plea. "I won't play a part in a show where silence is my only line." That was it. The same kitchen where I once cooked family dinners, where I'd fixed Bella's science projects, where I waited up on stormy nights for Leslie to come home. Now it held only the smell of old coffee and that folded piece of paper. I locked the front door behind me, not out of habit, out of finality. No one chased me down the driveway. No one called. No porch lights flicked on. The neighborhood stayed still, like the house knew I was gone and was already learning to forget me. I drove west. No destination, just away. I passed the bank I used to visit every Friday, the gas station where Bella used to call me to fill her tank, the strip mall where Leslie and I bought our first appliance together. Ghosts. Every corner of that town had my fingerprints. My time, my money, my sacrifices. But none of them had my name, and I realized something else. I had spent a decade investing in a house, not a home, in people who borrowed my care but never paid it back in respect. By nightfall, I found a cheap motel just outside Cedar Rapids, the kind with buzzing neon signage and curtains that never quite close. A bed, a lamp, plastic ice bucket, and silence. Not the performative silence of ignored dinners and one-sided conversations. Real silence. The kind you earn when there's no one left to lie to. I unpacked what little I brought. A few shirts, a laptop, my tools. I placed my phone on the nightstand, screen down. Notifications still rolled in. Calls from Leslie, from mutual friends, even from Bella's groom once. But I let them pass. Let them feel the silence I lived in for years. I started working again the next morning. Not because I needed the money, though most of mine had been poured into people who'd sooner pretend I never existed, but because work reminded me I could still build something that didn't betray me. A roofing job upstate. A remodeling contract through a friend. Cash jobs, manual labor. Honest sweat. No one asking me to smile for a family photo. No one laughing behind a microphone at my expense. I liked the rhythm of it. The ache in my shoulders at the end of the day. The cold water and sandwiches eaten in a truck instead of catered meals that came with side glances. It was during one of those lunch breaks that I finally checked my voicemail. The first was Leslie. "Michael, you need to come home. Please. I didn't know you were this hurt." Bella didn't mean. She was just nervous. And I was overwhelmed. I should have said something. "Please just come home." She said please twice. But never "I'm sorry." Then Bella. "You really think you can just disappear and leave this mess behind? The photos are locked. The venue's threatening to sue for breach. You humiliated me, and now you think you get to walk away like some wounded hero? Grow up." And finally, her husband, James. "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but..." Bella's shaken. "Leslie's not doing well. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but it's not too late to fix this. Just come back. We'll talk." The one thing all three of them had in common? They only called because the payments stopped. Not once did anyone say, "We miss you." Not once did anyone say, "You were right." Not once did anyone say, "Thank you." 3 weeks passed. I didn't return. I didn't respond. And the calls changed. Leslie's turned cold. "So this is it? You're just leaving? After everything?" Bella's turned panicked. The venue sent a final notice. "If we don't pay, they're suing. You better fix this or it's on you." James's turned desperate. "She's unraveling, Mike. Leslie's not herself. I don't know how to help her. She just keeps saying your name. Funny. When I was there, living, breathing, paying, my name was barely said at all. Now it echoed in an empty house. A month after I left, I got an envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Inside were photographs. Bella in her wedding dress, smiling but stiff. Leslie caught mid-laugh, though the image was slightly blurred. James alone on the dance floor, his arms raised like he was cheering no one. And then, at the very back of the stack, a note. "I found these on the photographer's website before they locked the gallery. You should have been in them." No signature. Just ink. And guilt. I burned the envelope in the motel trash bin. Because no, I shouldn't have been in them. You don't put a man in the photo you built by erasing him. Some nights I sat on the motel bed and thought about going back. About knocking on the front door just to see what changed. If anything. But then I'd remember that microphone. I'd remember Leslie's smile. I'd remember Bella's laughter. Echoing around a room I paid for. Filled with people who laughed at me like I wasn't in the room at all. I'd remember that no one stopped me at the door. No one called me back into the hall. No one said, "He built this." No one said, "That's our father." They said nothing. So I learned from them. Now I live near the river. The motel charges weekly, and the clerk doesn't ask questions. I wake early. I work with my hands. I eat simply. I sleep deeply. And I don't miss the noise. People still ask about the wedding sometimes. Friends of friends who didn't hear the full story. They say things like, "It must have been beautiful." Or, "I'm sure you were proud." And I smile. Because sometimes silence is kinder than truth. But if anyone ever asks again, really asks, "So who's paying now?" The answer's simple. Whoever earns respect. Not me. Not anymore.